To the sea as we go on to Georgia. Jimmy, it's you, isn't it? Oh, it is. Why, it's me. Oh, Nelson. Oh, Nellie. Come at last. Come to see you. Like I said it would, like I promised, way back in that day. Oh, 70, 80 pounds of you all the way from over there to right here. Yeah, some Alabama guards. They let me bring you here by myself. You know, see that you was set down proper instead of being piled on the wagons with all them others. You know, I made sure that she was the best dressed among them. No, I slipped you into them old pants that we'd sewed up together using them worn out meal sacks. You remember them? Ah, it's hot here today. Especially for being so late in the year. Almost as hot as today, hot as every day ever seemed to me to be here back then. Just look at all these out here. Damn, there's thousands. One like you, Jimmy. Quite a few of them are just laying there plain bare ass naked. But otherwise, pretty much just enough like you. Lying tight side by side, shoulder to shoulder. Covered over a few feet of this here confound Georgia clay. First off, I brought you this. And no. Before you say anything, I didn't pick these up off the grave of some other fellow on the way here. You know, I know. You go and think I'd do something like that, and I would. Now I got them from over there in the stockade. No, I'd stopped off there before I come here to the cemetery. Oh, Jim, I'm sure that you've heard of now that place is very much different. But it's more like a park. A place you could come and bring your whole family and lay out a blanket and sit down and have yourself a picnic. You know, Jimmy, I'm going to just pull this here bench over here, get kind of close to you here. You know, otherwise I might be walking all over the top of you, and if I gotta take a rest, might be sitting right on top of your head. And I know you won't be too happy with that. Well, anyways, stockade over there. Well, what the walls are all down. Oh, hell, the walls are gone. They're long ago. They're long ago burned up in stoves and fireplaces all over southwest Georgia. Well, but you know, there still are plenty of those old well holes and tunnel holes sprinkled around. Hey, you remember that one tunnel that we was working at? Off and on during the day, whenever the guards would be changing their spots up in their kitchen roofs, the sentry boxes. Yeah, but mostly at night. Now we'd be digging away like a bunch of little busy badgers, you know, moving all that dirt and mud and dust out between our legs, and I'm thinking somehow to first get ourselves underneath that deadline, which was already pretty damn close. Then we'd have another 15 feet to get to the first of them two prison walls, and then we might have to scoot down a little bit because some of these them pine logs was like, well, what, 5, 6 feet deep down into the ground. When we get under there, hell, we'd be ready to go another 50, 75, 100 yards if it took that much, and then we just scoot off north making sure all the while that a good day ahead of them sniveling bloodhounds that we had our behinds all the way up to the Cumberland River. Yeah. Anyways, it gave us something to do. Used up some of the time we had anyways. Lord knows we had plenty of that. Anyways, over there I broke my neck over there, and I was watching when I was planting my feet, and the first thing you know, I'm sunk down into one of them holes, you know, way up over my knee with my foot just swinging her out in the middle of nowhere. So by the time I got myself set right, but I spent the next couple of hours just wandering all over the place. Not believing for a minute all of what it was that I was looking at. It gave me a little time to, you know, think over what the two of us might talk about. I'm quite sure that I found a little spot up there on the north end. Yeah. I know. You insisted that we move our shebangs up there when you opened up that end of the stockade to make room for the hundreds or the thousands of fresh prisoners, like fresh fish, like we call them. That is just coming in every day. Yeah, I know you could have a little time of it convincing me of the wisdom and moving up there. Yeah, I had to sit on my head for about 3/4 of an hour before I finally agreed to move on up there with you. Yeah, but you know, Jim, you was right. No, that was a much better place on that higher ground. Yeah, never more so did it prove to be the case with them early summer rains pounding down and flushing so many of the old boys that decided best to stay where they were. Flushed them right down into the middle of the slime of that swamp. And up a little bit like we was doing. It made the air just all that much easier to breathe, you know, all that wet, damp pine smoke coming up off of them hundreds of little campfires burning throughout the place. Yeah, that was a pretty wise move on your part there. I thought it did buy us a couple extra months worth of time. And it was right about that, just like he was right about so many things. Probably one of the reasons why I'm still alive today, just because you was so often so right. Now, you can shut me up any old time that you think I'm boosting me up too high. Yeah, you always did say that I gabbed down too much, that I talked too much, that I would never shut up. Sometimes I get to thinking, yammering away as much as I did went as far as anything keeping me alive. Talking so much kept me from thinking too much. Well, not that there's ever too much of a danger of that happening, you know. Me thinking too much. All right, anyways. Like I said, no, I did get these for you from over in the stockade, but you ain't never going to guess from where it was inside there that I collected. You remember the little stream, the little creek that come down to us from up above? Hell, no way you can forget about that. There's a little branch of Sweetwater Creek. You can tell they give that name to it long before it was that we showed up. There's a little branch that come off the Flint River that went to the north and the east of us. Come down this way, and I'm sure that's what rebels figured to build their little camp right where they did, you know, just thinking that little stream would be well and good enough for a couple of thousand lucky Yankees ended up being down here sitting alongside that little stream, just waiting out the last months or even years of the war. Not thinking that there might be tens of thousands of us down here. Oh, and not enough room to stand up, much less to lie down, and then leaving some god awful many people behind. Well, and then of course they build the tree sink right over on top of it, so that anytime, any day, you know, you get down there like we so often would do, you know, Jimmy, remember how we stand there at the end and we look down the line, we'd be seeing nothing but hundreds of bare white asses sitting on them splintery pine boards. And then just knowing that each one was dropping a watery, blood-threaded collection into the swamp below. Well, Jimmy, that little stream, it still flows right there today, and I picked these, going right along the north side bank. I mean, I know that just weeds. Now, I can't help thinking maybe there's some colors, maybe pretty colors, folded into them somehow. Everything for me now, and well, even back then, as you may recall, I had done nothing but shades and shadows, and everything I look at it, nothing but clay white, black, or some other running mess up of grays. Yeah, I know it's been a while now. It's 1895. Hell, Jimmy, it's been over 31 years. Well, I know I promised I'd be back here long before this. Time, life, distance. Well, knowing all along that you weren't about to be breaking camp or striking a tent and heading on off to anywhere else. You know, it's just a couple of years after the end of the war, Jimmy, I got a hold of that book that they had come out with. It listed the names of all the, well, maybe not all. My apologies there to your unknown neighbor there. But most all is that died here and where in the cemetery each of us was buried, in case, you know, any one of us, like, you know, an old friend like myself or a family would come down and visit, like, just follow along in the numbers, and we know right where to catch up with you. Yeah, it's all put together by that young Atwater fellow. Yeah, you remember we would watch him. We would watch him going out through the south gate of the stockade every morning. Then he'd come back same way each evening, just a little bit before nightfall. He was one of those that rebels picked to keep a list of all those who died. Well, come to find out, all along that young fella, he was keeping to himself a secret list, a duplicate of the first one that he was making for the rebels, and he'd take this extra copy, he'd hide it down there inside of his pants, and then he'd sneak it back into the stockade and hide it away in his shebang at the end of each day that he spent working in that little office that they had up cobbled next to that old shack of a hospital right on the far side of the southeast wall. See, the thing with him was he figured that as time went by and the numbers of all those dying kept getting higher and higher, and all them stacks of notebook paper and books he was writing all this into kept getting longer and longer. Well, he got into his head that in the end there'd be little chance the rebels would ever let all those names be let out there and seem like everybody else in the country. It's a mighty brave thing he did. He figured the first sign any part of our army was getting close enough to free enough, a few of us that might still be alive, well, they'd, I don't know, they'd burn it up, or they'd bury it all, or more than likely they'd use it for wadding as they're loading up the cannons full of that grape shot before blowing us all the kingdom come. Yeah, it was a brave thing he did. Rebels would have not been happy at all with him come to find out what he was doing. Well, anyway, this book that I'm telling you about, it's all put together by states. You know, any state would fellows to go down this way while they get as number pages inside the book as they need to get everybody all listed. Yeah, got the book. Well, of course, right away I flipped to our state, well, I did need a little help about this time. You know, my eyes are as bad as they are, and the print inside this book, it's very, very small. You know, it's tiny. I mean, I know what it has to be. You know, there's between 12 and 13,000 names inside this book, and you know, there's your name and the day that you died, and then the outfit that you were signed up with, and then Edgewater and a few of the others, and maybe even one or two decent nurses from the hospital. They tried to figure out what it was that caused each and every one of you to die, and they put that in there as well. So yeah, that makes for a lot of letters and numbers that all got to have ink slathered over on top of them, goes to the printing press, and they print it all up, and then they take it all out, and they got to glue the pages together, and they got to run the string to it, and then they got to, then they still got to close up the covers on the whole damn thing. So yeah, it's print's pretty small. So I did have to enlist the help of a friend of mine who had a much better pair of eyes, and together we run my fingers down the list. There he was, Jimmy, right there on page 68. Name, your outfit, that day that you died. Well, all them things. Yeah. Well, most all them things that I put down on that little slip of paper and tied it around your neck the other day. Jimmy, you doing all right? For all these many years. I ended up just the two of us out of a mess of, I don't know what, 8, 10. Now, I'm not quite sure that before the summer come with all the heat and all the sickness and dying that had brought along with it, that we was up to an even dozen. Then the Reaper come through, and I took off more than just the top from our mess and from the hundreds of other messes that was spread throughout the place. How we, you and me, how we took such good care of each and every one of our own as they slid away from us one by one, day after day. Cleaned them up as best as we could. I made sure that each one was labeled properly. Set them gently down outside the south gate. And I know you insisted that we say a prayer over each and every one of them as they left us off. Of course, Gene, you know how to say a prayer for you. It was a long one. No, I had an awful hard time letting you go that day. Well, mostly I used up, the same words that you said over each and every one of our own, and then I babbled on to all sorts of things that's rattling around up inside my head, things I'd probably been embarrassed if I'd known or cared that anybody happened to be listening in to me. Jimmy, I ain't forgotten any of it. No, not hardly a day goes by that I don't recall some small part of it. You, me, well, all the others. Harris Brooks and Calvi and Dolan, Montgomery, Pitchford, Schaefer. Anthony Crawl. And they got whittled down to just the two of us for an awful long stretch of time. Yeah, then it was just me. Jimmy, I stayed in our shebang for, I don't know, hell, it must have been another 10 days or so after you died, And I know, you told me, I said, just get the hell out of here as soon as I could, as long as I was still able to, hobble through that south gate, make it on over to the depot and get away from here. And I got to tell you, I was getting pretty well used up by that time too. My legs down here, you know, each one of them was like, swelled up like a German sausage. It was. My knees, well, they was all corded up so it went to knots, so I couldn't bend them. And somehow if they did get set off at a queer angle, what I had one hell of a time trying to put them straight again. All that was on account of that scurvy. Yeah, but the worst of all of it was, Jimmy, I couldn't see very much. My eyes, they was pretty much shot. Oh, I did all right during the daytime, you know. I make it to the roll calls and pick up some rations if I could manage to choke down that shit for yet another day. How about at night, Jimmy? I couldn't see anything at all. I was just as blind as them old sinning fools in the Bible. I gotta tell you, Jimmy, without you being there, you know, being there beside me, at least knowing close enough where the hell you was with that. Well, I got awful scared with the dark. By that time, there was so much sickness and dying going on all around us that all of our old neighbors, for one reason or another, they was all gone, and their places was filled in with all kinds of these new strangers. Oh, I was never, ever so happy to see that old dusty, smoke-covered, cloud-draped, foggy-faced circle of a sun, the god of the day, crawl his way up that eastern sky and poke over them palisade walls as I was in. But Jimmy, you know, hell, we knew where all those trains was really headed. We knew they was just taking us all off to some other prison. You know, all that talk of parole and exchange, well, it wasn't nothing but lies. And it's just same old shit we've been hearing for months. Now they just want everybody to believe that they was going to take us straight north all the way up to the Tennessee line, and once they got us up that far off, for sure they'd just be trading us over for some of their own. No, that way they get all of us somehow, you know, halfway believing that to be the case, right? And none of us are going to somehow get it into our heads to slide off them railway cars in the middle of the night, or when they slow down and stop during the day to take on water and firewood for the trains. Get it into our heads to slide off them railway cars and thread our own way over to Sherman's lines. Now that way they got by having a whole lot fewer guards on the train watching over everybody. Well, sure enough, by the time I finally did crawl onto one of them filthy old cattle cars, Jimmy, went right straight to Millen, Georgia. Camp Lawton. Yeah, I don't know, it wasn't much better than this place. You know, Jimmy, I would have died there for certain. Except, well, for some reason, I don't know. For some reason, I got taken in. I got taken up. You know. Well, I adopted, you might say. Well, I adopted like a little puppy dog. Yeah, some Michigan cavalry boys. I don't know. They'd been captured only I don't know, maybe a week or so before. Now, they was riding a nighttime scouting by deck, you know, a few miles south from Atlanta, and well, they tell me they got a little careless. And sure enough, if they didn't get, you know, scooped right up by some Georgia militia. Now, Jimmy, them boys, I don't know, they fussed over me like I know for sure they would have fussed over you. Now, the thing about them was, Jimmy, they had an awful lot of greenbacks on them. Somehow they was able to hide them away, you know, slide them down into the folds of their uniforms, or better yet, they take that script and they roll it up into a little ball or a little wad and take it, and they would just Stick it right up there into the deepest and the darkest spots of each and every man's body, whatever the hell it took to keep that precious cargo from falling into the thieving fingers of them rebel guards before we got turned loose into the stockade. Yeah, by that time there was all kinds of suckers had their shops set up, and them boys, well, they were so very, very generous. They shared with me all the things, the money they had could buy. Oh, they gave me an even share of the much better food they got. They impressed on me some medicine that doesn't seem to help with my eyes some, unless they more likely it was the better foods all of a sudden I was eating, I'd get vegetables, and there was still a fair amount of harvest fruit to be had for them who had the money to purchase it. I even got me some warmer clothes and a different blanket against the cold winter months that was fast dropping down on top of us. Oh, Jimmy, those boys, they were just my Wolverine angels. That's what I call them back then. Yeah, I still call them that, right up this very day. My Wolverine angels. Yeah, Jimmy, there's just very, very much more, I could tell you, but I don't know. I just don't know if it's of any interest to you and all your neighbors with so much time having passed by. Now, since I don't hear any complaining, I guess I'll just ramble on till the time comes out of it. The rebels now, they shuffle us back and forth, they took us from Camp Lawton over to Alabama, back to Georgia, on up to South Carolina. And, for a short time now, we was locked up in one of the very queen cities of the southern section itself, right there in Charleston. That was soon enough. They moved us further inland to a god awful hellhole. There's a place there in Florence, South Carolina. After way too long to stay there to the backside of winter, and then finally on up into the first signs of spring, and then they moved us one last time. Moved us across a pretty good sized chunk of North Carolina. Jimmy, I never did see our dear and glorious flag, well, I like the one hanging over there. We never did see it till they took us all the way to Wilmington. Now our boys, they'd already taken, Fort Fisher some time before, and with that place in our hands, there was no way in hell the rebels could hang on to the town. Yeah, I'm sure they must have known this all along, even as they was taking us off in that direction. I figured they just pretty much run out of any new place to put us. And they also knew by this time that there wasn't a single day's worth of fighting left in any one of us. So there it was. Wilmington, North Carolina. That's where we got handed over. And I was inside our lines at last after 15 months being a guest of a half a dozen southern prisons. Jimmy, I talked to you that day just like I'm talking to you right now. I still didn't want to get us both back home. I'm so sorry that I couldn't get you strong enough to walk with me through that gate. It wasn't until later on in June I was finally able to make it on up to your place and meet your family. Now, I spent well over a month in a hospital in Annapolis. I was just there, kind of feather out and get my muscle back out. Well, then that long, slow train ride across Pennsylvania and Indiana, Pennsylvania and Ohio, then Indiana, finally on to Chicago. Jimmy, that's Chicago. It's got to be a pretty damn big place. Yeah, I spent the better part of the day just kind of going around in a circle before I ended up getting the right train that took me straight up to Milwaukee, and then I still had another 50 miles or so to get on up to your 30 acres of land. But you know what? When I got up there, Jimmy, I could have sworn that I'd already been there so many times before. Now, he was very good at describing your place to me. Well, then it was that I met your wife, Alicia. And she'd already known for any number of months that you had died. A moment of great sadness, Jimmy, then just passed between the two of us, and we was kind of holding on to each other for the longest of time, and then I'm sure both of us was being taken away by a far different memory of you. I mean, I sure don't need to be the one to tell you that she's a very fine person, and I can see why it was. She never left your mind, even for half a day. But I was able to give her some of the things of yours that I kept with me through them last months. Now you know that it was me that made sure to leave you with all them images of Alicia and then be one of your family that you kept sewed inside that old rag of a shirt that you wore each and every day. Yeah, your lucky shirt. And I know you're still wearing it right now, that you haven't gone and traded it off to anybody or given it away, because you still got all them pictures of each and every one of them just lying there right atop across that big bony chest of yours. Yeah, but I did give her that awful nice pipe that you made out of one of the many pieces of corn cob that happened our way, before it happened through our way. Yeah, a few checker pieces left from that game that we played over and over, day after day. And I think, what was it, Jimmy? Every third day, fourth day, was it that you let me a little wing on from you? Yeah, but most important, Jimmy, I was able to provide her with that little gold finger ring that you always wore. Remember that, do you? Now, Sergeant Torbert, I have to count you among the wisest people that I have ever spent much time at all with, but I will have to say that the idea that you had in your head to be trading that precious little piece of gold for, what the hell was it now? Any chance that I might have a memory of it? For sure I do. He was all set to hand it over to the rebel guard, no less, for a couple of ropes of tobacco and a handful of onions. Now, that truly did have to be about the most foolish of thoughts that I ever see running through your head and ended up coming right out between your lips. And I do hope that you are forever grateful for your good friend here, L.J. Nelson, for talking you out of making that little business deal. But as the years, Jimmy, are going by now, your wife and I, we have corresponded. We write back and forth, not very often, Nothing for you to get green over every few years. Just to say hello and wish each other well, and it might be that one or the other of us does happen to mention your name in passing. I think doing as much, for me anyways, goes some distance to keeping a part of you alive. And I also write to your boy John. Oh, he's not a boy anymore. No, if he could have come along with me, like we'd all planned on the two of us doing from the start, except this past spring, the rains up there, coming down, so that the last I heard from him, must have been 10 days back, when he was still out in his fields trying to get all that seed into the ground, so it's pretty much left up for me to kind of figure my way down here. But now, if he could have come along with me, well, I'd for sure make a little space here on the bench for him, and better yet, I think I'd take a chair. I take a chair, and I'd put the chair back here, so as you're looking at me like here, you see past me, and you see him behind me, and you see how he comes from about here out to about there, and tall. Now, Jimmy, now you sure that he's one of those? Nah, he's forever after me to be telling him more things about you. I don't know, he's got it into his head. His mother's holding back and not telling him some things. I didn't worry anyways. I've always kept him pretty damn high up in the saddle. And besides, I don't know what the hell he's talking about anyways. So, Jimmy, I do get to thinking about your boy every once in a while. And you know what? Not only is he almost twice as big as us, well, right now he's nearly twice as old as either one of us was back then. Demon time. Jimmy, it's hot here. How does everybody ever seem to be here? How does them days, Jim, how we poke our heads out of the shebang and then we flip on over and look up into the sky and swear to God that sun wasn't but a mile over our heads. Yeah. One difference is today I'm wearing boots. I ain't barefoot. This here ground ain't hot, steamy, and sandy alive with them white wiggling maggots trying to chew their way into the bottom of the skin. Look at me. It's the GAR, Grand Army of the Republic. It didn't take them long after the end of the war when they started up with all these here clubs and posts and chapters all over the north. I applied for one of these for you. I figured anybody deserved to have one. It was you. Spending all of years fighting rebels in Virginia and having a bad luck to pass the last few months of your life down here in this dismal hole. Me, I mailed it to your son, and he assures me that he displays it with all the honor and respect that it deserves. Well, anyways, this GAR, oh hell, they have reunions and meetings and picnics all the time. Now, you Potomac boys, now you had a large gathering. Now, it wasn't that many years back. It was out east of Gettysburg. Mine was around the same time, except that it was down in and around Chattanooga. I didn't. Jim, it's just the same old blowhards and coffee coolers going on and on about how their particular regiment won the whole goddamn war all by themselves. And believe me, Jimmy, you would know the kind. No, I choose to keep my mind clear over this, Memory has a way of getting loud enough without needing a helping hand from all that useless shatter. Jimmy, I just put the sack coat with the pin on it. I just put it on this morning when I went on over into the stockade. Otherwise, for the trip down, I'd kept packed away in my grip over there. Oh, Jimmy, you're not looked upon with a great deal of fond affection by the local natives. These surly crackers are surly and puffed up devil. The only good thing, or so it does seem to me, appears to be a damn sight fewer of them. They haven't softened a bit, and they still hate us for all that sweet holy hell we raised down here. Maybe they should have thought a little bit longer, a little bit harder before starting all this up in the first place. And knowing you like I do, Jimmy, I'm sure you want me to tell you how it's all been with the Negroes. So you really don't seem like they did a whole lot better off than when we passed through here the last time. Yeah, they still do all of that shit work, it seems to me, and I don't really own much of anything at all. And well, as ever before, they still dare and I cannot lift up an eye to these wretched dirt eaters. Now, we should have come down harder on them. Hung a few of these rebel traitors, Davis, Lee, Stevens. As it turned out, Jimmy was only our own dear friend, Captain Henry Wurz, commandant to the prison here. Why, he's about the only one that does come to my mind that did end up taking taking a hard drop. I suppose he deserved as much. I don't know. You look out here and you see there's between 12 and 13,000 boys and young men got carried out through the south gate, tossed on a wagon, and drug on over here to the cemetery. Out of a prison that was in existence for a little bit over a year. No, not just. There was just there's no way in hell poor old Henry Wurz was going to miss out on his appointment with the hangman on the scaffold. I told you how those Michigan boys, how they kept me alive and saw me safe toward home before heading on their own way back to Detroit. Well, I still correspond with a few of them that are still with us. And Jimmy, you can be sure that with every letter that I write to them, I'm forever mindful that I pass along how grateful I am for all of what they did for me, for saving my life. I still wonder what the hell it was about me that drew such charity from him. I never did ask him about that at the time, figuring if I was to do as much, why somehow he didn't break the magic spell. And, I never have since then either. Well, anyway, Jimmy, I would sure like to tell you that, by the time that I got home, that I was just as good and strong as ever. That's just not the case. Not the case at all. No, the doc says my gut and my insides, that they're all scarred, smooth and useless, from all the way. But underneath the chin there, down there to the middle part that goes straight down, and then underneath there, there are twists and curves and spirals all around inside you before it ends up circling around your backside and scooting out your bunghole. Yeah, if the truth be told, Jimmy, I haven't taken a decent shit since I staggered through that south gate well over 32 years ago. It's hardly a surprise when you get to thinking about how we was eating nothing but raw corn with a cob halfway ground into it, and every once in a while they throw you some vermin pork that just so awful stuff, worms crawling around inside of it. It's no wonder that the few of us still alive from this place have to walk around wearing baby napkins. Yeah, I already I already told you that I can't see colors at all anymore. No, I finally did end up losing all that, those things in the eyes, you know, that make blue and red. Damn good thing that I ain't a painter already. But I don't think the most troublesome, I guess, depressing thing of all of it is, well, it seems that I never have, and well, I certainly never will, you know, be able to have any children of my own. Well, I know that's one thing. I'm sure it's the only thing that I can't blame on this place. They say that I made way too many stops at all them temptation cribs, you know, there in Louisville and Nashville and Cincinnati and Cairo at Paducah. Oh, Jimmy, I think there was one or two other places that I never got around to telling you about. But anyways, I caught something that I interrupted with the business down here, and it's caused me some awful pain and suffering over these last many years that I shall not burden you with the details of. Ruined myself in that regard, that same doc told me. I think you had cautioned me about this very thing happening when we was together down here. Yeah, of course, by that time it's way too late anyways, so. Well, I suppose anyways that you'll be pleased to know that my days of participating in that sinful sport are long past. And I'll be almost as happy, you know, at least that you'll at least live on through your children's children long after I'm dead and buried and gone and forgotten. But on my way to catching up with you, Jim, because, well, you know me, I'm always thinking about all kinds of different plans and ways I'm doing stuff. Because I figure this is what I figure when my time does come, you know, when I end up finally slipping the bridle, well, I'm going to hie my way up towards a good place, because I know that's got to be where if you aren't there already, for sure that'll be where you're setting up your final bivouac, you know, man, of your great courage and virtue. Now, I'll be following behind you, you know, but I may have to kind of sneak my way on up there, because, well, I mean, I've been accumulating some virtue myself, but a long way to go, and I may have to just kind of lie in the weeds a little bit, because when I get close by, I'm for sure going to see you off in the distance, and you're going to be sitting there with all a bunch of other people that got all this other virtue kind of draped all around them, and I'll be peeking my way through there, and where the thing is between where you is with them and where I am back here, there's going to be this tall fence. You know, I mean, it's going to be a nice fence. I know that. It's going to be, you know, like you can look right through it, and it's going to be made of these solid gold bars, and each and every other one of them, there's going to be, you know, maybe like an ivory sleeve going up and down, well, then this fence is going to kind of curve itself around to where there's this gate. Of course, in the front of the gate, there's this big lock. Well, now the lock, it ain't there to keep you inside. No, because, you know, you're already at the places anybody who's ever spent any time at all down here under this earth, pushing any mud and dirt and dust up between your boot heels or underneath your toes, hopes to get to when their time does come. No, the lock on the gates for them on the outside, that they're not quite sure about, you know. Now, people like myself, you know, I'll be out there, and you know, people that are not sure about it, and, you know, held up by the ankles and shook real hard to see what else was going to fall out, you know. There'll be quite a few milling around out there, and yeah, for sure there's going to be quite a few goats, you know, mixed in with the rest of us lambs out there, but there's going to be guards up there making sure that, you know, none but from the one side get over to the other without being looked up and down. But Jimmy, these guards, they're going to be a whole lot different than the guards that we had down here, and all these guards up there. They're going to be beautiful angels. And they're going to be looking down there, and they're going to be seeing the likes of me sneaking on up there towards that gate, and yeah, they're not going to be happy at all with seeing that. Sooner or later, they're going to turn themselves around. They're going to put all them little bows with the arrow, you know, like you see all the little angels with the wings that they got painted up in these hotels, and I'm sure I've seen them in one or two churches that I've been in. You know, they'll be there with the arrows and they'll be aiming them down on me. Yeah, I guess you can see how I'm thinking this whole thing up there is going to be, you know, awful much like it was right down here, except this time everything's, you know, turned inside out, upside down, and now the whole problem is this time is going to be how to get me through that damn gate, you know, to catch up to you on the other side, and all the while having these guards, you know, looking down at me, so I don't know what. But I've been working on something. I had a friend that agreed that when my time does finally come, he's going to for sure tie a spade there to the back of my leg, and of course they'll put me into the box and drop the box into the ground, and always saying all nice kinds of things over me, and then when they leave me off, I'm going to start my little trip on up here, and when I get close enough. Now, what I figure is these angel guards, sooner or later, they got to get tired of looking at all these saints and sinners kind of sprawled out in front of them, and they got to turn themselves around and look at all the fun that you're having on the inside. And that's when I'm going to take my chance to scoot on up there, and I'm going to take that shovel off from behind my legs, start digging and digging and digging. So by the time they turn themselves back around, I already have a little tunnel holed up with some heavenly dust there for a little rest of work, you know. You can just see it. I'm always working on things. But anyway, getting on back to me to how I was telling you, I was out in that hospital in Maryland for, you know, it's been about, I don't know, six weeks. I was awful sick when I got off that steamboat that come up from the Carolinas. And after being there that long, I guess by that time they figured I had an even odd chance of getting home alive. And then, you know, I had already been paid up and mustered out, and then so I come back towards home, and like I told you, I stopped off at your place and was there for a few days it was, and I just want to tell you, Timmy, that it was just a time that I'll never forget. All the kindness and the hospitality that just your wife and your family all showed to me. I mean, I don't know, I was just never used to all that attention. I come from a little further on up, you know, and I don't know, we don't get into all that kind of stuff, you know. Well, your wife, she invited over all of your friends and your relatives and the other farmers that had places that butted up beside yours, and they all come over on this bright, beautiful sunny summer afternoon, and the women, they brought these sandwiches and cakes and pies and cookies, beer, lemonade, and coffee, and we all just sat outside in the yard and spent the whole time just talking all about you. And he was asking me all sorts of questions about what it was like down here during them last months. Because Jimmy, there was one thing that we got awful wrong. You know, we figured that nobody had ever hear of this place, that the only ones left to be around to mention anything about it would be the few lucky ones that got out of here alive. But Jimmy, this place had got to be awful famous. And they was asking me all sorts of things that they had read about and heard and wondered if it was all true now. Well, of course, now I learned an awful lot about you that I didn't know. A whole afternoon's worth it was. And earlier in the morning, your wife and your little boy, they come out of the house and they brought that chair. You know, the chair that you always sat in at the end of the day where you were working in the fields, and they set it down there right in the grove of the trees. And you know, it was that chair that you'd always talk about with me. You know, how at least when you was feeling better, how you wished we had it up there on our high ground, and how we could put that chair right in front of our shebang. And you did say that we could take turns, you know, sitting in it, and how we'd be looking out there on a couple dozen acres of the most godforsaken land a person could ever imagine could ever be anywhere on the face of the earth. And you know, Jimmy, how, you know, in the late afternoon when the sun starts to work its way down the sky, you know, it comes down closer to the ground, and the rays of the sun kind of come at you from the angle where they kind of bounce right along the ground. And from where I was sitting there, and the chair was out there in front of me, and the sun was lowering itself down, and the rays was just cutting its way through the leaves of the trees that were just dancing in the warm summer breeze. And my eyes being as bad as they are, I had to kind of squint them against the rays of the sun, and then I look at that chair, and I swear to God that you were sitting right there amongst us all. And it wasn't just me, there's other people that thought the same thing, that you were sitting right there. They're all getting ready to say something, but of course we was all talking so much that you never got a chance to say anything at all. Well, for you it must have been just like being down here with me, gathering away all the time and not getting a chance to say nothing. Well, Jimmy, your wife, she told me I was just to stay on to the place as long as I felt I needed to be, as long as I felt I needed to get some stronger or get my head cleared out a little bit. And well, I did want to help out, because I got to tell you, Jimmy, your place, it needed an awful lot of work. I mean, I know it's a busy time of the year, and all the other farmers, well, they helped out as much as they could, but they had their own place that they had to be taken care of first. And tell you, boy, now he might be bigger than a barn right now, but back then, he's just a little shaver. And I knew it'd take me a whole week to do what a regular person could do in about a half day's time. And I didn't want to wear out my welcome. Even though, like I said, she said I'd just stay there for as long as ever. Well, I did have my own family to get back to. Hell, I've been gone for 3 whole years, almost 3 years to the very day it was. I didn't get no furlough like you did, no. No, I was back there in the summer of '62 it was. Yeah, I know. You've heard this many times before, but you gotta admit now, it's just been a while. Summer of '62, when 100 of us, we all got together in the town, and mostly as boys from inside the town, but there was a few others that come to us from off the farms in the other part of the county. We all got together, and we got on the train, and the train took us right down there to Oshkosh. And there it was. We become one of the companies for the 21st. Yeah, it's kind of a funny thing, Jimmy, getting back after all that time, all 3 years of being away out. I don't know, it seemed to be so much the same. It was just like I had gone off the day before yesterday, all the people and places. Yeah, I mean, who am I to think the world's going to turn upside down on my account? Anyways, I got a brother-in-law there. We all got along real well with him, and he put me to work in his livery business. Give me some easier things to do so as I could get a little stronger, and that worked out very well. I got some of my muscle back, and well, along with getting some of that strength back, I got the feeling restless again. Restless. Jimmy, I think being restless, I think that's just been an evil worm that's just had its way with me a good part of my life. Not now anymore, but back then when I was younger, I was thinking somehow I'd be better off if only I was someplace else. Probably got me into the whole mess up with the 21st. Well, I got the feeling that way, and so it wasn't long before I packed up my grip there, and I went north. I mean, hell, I was already pretty far north, right where I was living, but I went way up there, where there's other states, and there's a whole other country we have up there. And for a number of years, I worked in the pineries. We'd be cutting down trees in the wintertime, and then come spring, we'd shoot them down the river rapids to the mills. Yeah, I never was quick enough or strong enough where I could do any of that fancy dancing that you have to do on the valves, when you get to spinning and sliding and sloshing around in the river bottoms, and all the while you're hanging on to one of these heavy oak-handled steel curved tip PV poles, trying to move them things apart so they don't pile up one on top of the other, and all the while you're going just dancing. Now I was never strong enough to do all sorts of things after the time I spent. needed to be doing. Otherwise, you know, he had to get them trees that were standing straight up like this. He had to get them to be laying down on our backside. So, oh hell, I loaded wagons, I set chains, I even did a fair amount of cooking. You know, I sharpened a hell of a lot of axe faces, saw teeth. No, I'm damn good at doing them things that some poor old fool had to do. Like that. I can almost hear you laughing way over Jimmy. What am I doing fooling around with pine trees after these miserable pieces of shit they have down here with their watery sap, stingy heat? Yeah, but it was a fair number of years, but you know, like all things, I got to be a little worn out with it, and so then I packed up what few things I still had, and I moved out to Mineral Point. Now, Jimmy, you got to pay attention now. You can't be sliding off into sleep right now, because this is an important part now. I went down to Mineral Point, and I married a widow. I did, Clara Townsend. And to this very day, the two of us, we've been keeping up a saloon there and taking care of the thirsty needs of all those old lead and the much newer, younger zinc miners. Sometimes they can be ornery, difficult, owly of a lot, but you know, after the sesh boys down here, or them fellas, they get a little bit out of line. Ain't nothing but a little crack in the side of the head with a piece of solid oak and settle right quick. I mean, I know that back at the time that Clara, that she took me on as a husband, you know, as much as because she needed help running her saloon business there, as much as that she needed or expected, you know, any of that romance stuff, you know, all that emotion that comes from the heart. But you know, now we've been together now over 20 years. Well, like she says, or the way is that she puts it, we have grown together into a ripe, seasoned comfort. Yeah, we've even got some grandkids, you know, from her being married to her first husband. Sure, I tell them all my stories about, you know, Stones River and Chickamauga. Well, all that's proper to tell, you know, all that I care to tell. Not so much about this place. You know, for young years, hungry for adventure and excitement, well, hell, there ain't nothing like Snodgrass Hill or Missionary Ridge. Yeah, I figured to keep most of Andersonville, you know, pretty much to myself. You know, Jimmy, I just can't help thinking that somehow I could have gotten you out of here. Well, two, 3 times we almost made it. I don't know, I think I let go of your arm too soon that last time trying to, I don't know, catch a haversack or what was it, a bedroll that slipped my shoulder. And then you fell. Well, always the strongest and the smartest of any of us. And when it got down to being just a few of us, well, I took over most all our cooking, and hell, there wasn't anybody who could put together a decent meal with a couple of pails of raw corn and, you know, a few slabs of sour belly, and then I don't know, maybe it's one of them rare days that one of us boys was lucky enough to scour up a half full of sweet potatoes to throw on into the pot. You warned me away from, you know, drinking any water that had come up to us from the ground, you know, insisting that we only use what we could collect from the rain. Now you picked all that lice off my back, and some of them other places that I couldn't reach or I couldn't see. I even checked it. See that I kept all my sores, even the smallest ones, covered up against the gangrene. How did it end to turn this way, Jimmy? All I could come up with is you had so much more of a life to worry over than I did. And as the weeks and the months went by, it just worked on your soul. Your family, your farm. You had too much future to imagine. Being back with all your family, sitting around for Sunday dinners, teaching your children all the things that you knew. Which was an awful lot. I gotta stay tent with you all them months, Jimmy. I never could figure out how so many ideas and wise thoughts could be pressed between the 2 ears of one man. Me? Nothing behind that hold me back, nothing certain ahead. Yeah, maybe one last final, poke with the soil doves on our way north. God, maybe it's just my being so damn cussed angry all the time that helped me staying alive, just to piss those toothless boomers off. Mad at everybody. Not even you from time to time. Certainly we squabbled some, but hell, we always made up. Now, we was just like a couple of a man and a wife, without the business. You ever get to thinking like that, Jimmy? Now, is it just me? Now, the most mad I got was the day I had to bring you here all brittle and wrinkled up and set you down on this little slip of land. I so didn't want to get you back. Well, I miss you, Jimmy. Well, even though we only first met here on that long ago spring day, well, right off we become fast friends, and I just know that we'd have stayed as much through all these many years to follow. Just look at all these thousands stretched out into rows of hundreds. Each one of them with their own sadness and sorrow. And each one of them, just like you, Jimmy. I guess just like me. Their own little story to tell. Lying out here under this God-forsaken southern sky, waiting out the last judgment. It's hard to think that anybody could be carrying sense enough to keep them out of heaven after this here past that hell on earth. Still them half dozen bounty jumping New York City Irish boys lying over there all by themselves. Murderers and robbers, the weakest among us. Hell, they just reminded that war they didn't make, and I had too often enough allows a person to do some god-awful things. I keep waiting, for you to say something, argue, complain. Well, we did plenty of that, both of us, right up until that last week when your mind took that final turn, and you was likely to be back in that cornfield at Antietam or mending some broken fences along your pasture land as it would have been back here in the shebang with me. Well, there was any number of times during that final stretch of days that you would yell out demanding that somebody, anybody, well, it's mostly as me is yelling for the quick, go and get you another helping of your wife's rhubarb pie. Well, right up until that last week when your mind took that final turn and it was all weaseled up and gone. Now, Jimmy, I wrote your wife about my coming here to visit you now. I didn't know if it was the right or the proper thing to do, you know. I don't know, somehow I got into my head that maybe she locked all this away and then didn't really want to be brought back to it. I even imagined her in my mind, you know, getting my letter, you know, take it out and read it, and then thinking, and maybe even saying to herself, oh God, it's just another one long, sad, hard to read letters from that old fool Nelson in there. How he does so go on about the past. I don't know why, you know, I got to thinking that she'd be thinking that way, you know, after all these years of writing back and forth. And, well, of course, she wrote back to me right away, and the nicest of letters, like all her letters are. And, well, what she did is she sent along a second letter tucked inside the one she sent me. It's a letter, Jimmy, that I'm supposed to read to you. So as not to, you know, keep you in the dark, so to speak. Well, sure. You know, I've looked through any number of times beforehand, Jimmy. So many times I pretty much know each word that comes after the one word that comes before it. I didn't want to sound like some stuttering schoolboy trying to puzzle out a lesson. I think sometimes my limits up here kind of got on your nerves every once in a while. Anyways, the letter was written with the date of 18 May, 1895. Dear James, I never thought a time would come that I would talk with you again one more time as if you stood behind me just out of sight. How to put in a single letter what has happened after so many years. Your dear friend Leonard said he never did tell you his first name, real first name, just that you knew him as LJ. He has been so very kind, keeping you still lit up in my memory. Not in a pained way, no, not at all. What to tell you, what to leave out. I have spoken to you in my prayers more then, not as much as years pass by. Our children are grown way past your age, as forever you will be 28 to me, handsome and solid. Not a grandfather that you are in truth. John is a farmer in Lamartine and remembers you best. Francis favors you in many ways. Elizabeth and Rose try hard to get you right, but they were so young. They don't live far from me with their families in Green Bay. Yes, I sold the farm to my brother Theo. He bought the 40 acres next door from Seth Boyle, wheat, corn, cattle, and chickens. In '69, I married Cletus Wagner from Mayville, settled up here soon after. He was a teamster with Grant's Army. Admits he never got shot at, just kicked a lot by the mules and horses upset with dragging wagons sunk in Virginia mud. He's a good man, James. Favors you some, but different from you. But well, like you in many ways, two people can make life pass in comfort and company. We had 2 children together, grown now, a boy in Milwaukee and a married daughter in 2 Rivers. All get along, pleased to tell you. They visit me regular. I know you would want to know that you would wish us a happy life. I am
relieved that you see me as I was, not the old prune I have grown into be, though Cletus says that is not so, but he lies sweet, but just like you. He insists that we keep your image on the mantle, though the serious look you show us is not at all what I remember, but I fix the smile and to tilt your head aside as was your wont. It has been so long, January 1864, when we saw each other the last. As years go by and I'm closer to my end than my beginning, a spark from years ago seems more clear than what happened only yesterday. I don't know if that's an omen or just the mind's nature when the usual worries of the day lose their hold, but I find sudden visits of our past to be more common, called up by the sight on the street of an old uniform blouse or a resemblance in a stranger carrying a feed bag from the town mill. Time settles things, puts most of the past out of reach, but hangs onto an odd collection of some treasured glimpses as well as the dull ordinary. And no hand-colored special coins hidden about for poor Cletus, you'll be pleased to hear. That was for us for that time, those pleasure charms pulling us naked into winter's cozy clutch or summer's sweaty tumble. The one I find you snuck in my apron, inside the bread box or my knitting hamper. About time to cash in the profits, settle accounts, you'd laugh in your shy, asking way. I remember your crazy grin when you would find my reply in your watch pocket or your hatband. I'm sending a couple for you with Leonard. You'll slip them down near your head in case you've forgotten. Love, Alicia.
Hell, you never did tell me about those pretend toy coins, Jenny. Just like your wife says, I never did tell you, never did let on to you that one. Well, my real first name was Leonard. Still after having to listen to me going on and on about, you know what, painted companions and strapped molasses and hearing me complain to you about how much money I had to spend to buy all that horizontal refreshment. Yeah, it's good that you did. Neither one none of my business anyways. Now it's still watch pocket, hatband, even a promise of a fistful of the creamy white flesh with a token placed in the bread box. Oh, Jim, like a couple of young rabbits, the two of you. No, I think with that memory tucked inside your head, I pretty much best, just leave you to yourself, Enough with any more of my nonsense here. That's, have to put all this, pretty deep, Jimmy. Make sure that it stays here for you and you alone. Yeah. Here we go. Got a couple of them hand-painted clay pretend toy coins of you and your wife. Think you can manage two of them? Jimmy, I've been looking at these back home, and even now under this here bright sun, I can't tell for sure what it is that we've got. Is it, I don't know, one red one and one blue one, or two red ones and two blue ones? And all that I can say for sure is, maybe one of these is a white one. And Jimmy, nowadays they use something awful much like this when they play poker. Instead of setting all your money in front of you, you push it off to the side, and then you use some of these in their place. They even call them chips, poker chips. And at the end of the night, sitting at the table, throwing the cards, it's one of these two colors a fellow most wants to see, sitting in a pile in front of him, because then there's the colors that value the most of whatever it is that makes you the happiest. And then you take all your coins over, you trade them in for your winnings, and then you head on your way back home. This is all in there. Yeah. Yeah, Jimmy, it's a good thing that they put sergeant on your marker. Well, let everybody know that he was more than just a simple webfoot like most all the rest of us. I know, Jimmy, I can't promise you that I'll be back this way. Now, of course, now I can't say that I won't either. But I know that the day for sure is going to come, Jimmy, that we're going to get together for sure. Well, well, I'll get that shovel behind my leg, and I'll be doing all that digging, and I've been accumulating, more virtue than you think it possible for me to accumulate. Yeah, I thought maybe you get a chance, you could somehow put in a word for me. I know I still have to stand in a long line behind your family's family. But a good friend, I believe it or not, as time has gone by and the years have passed, I've grown to be quite patient with the long waiting.
Thank you. And aside from our appreciation, we'd like to do a little gift for your efforts and your sharing of your story. And we're just wondering, would you be open to any questions or anything like that? So, anyway, our first question is, what unit was LJ?
Of course, he's a fictitious composite character. He was in the 21st Wisconsin. I'm from Fond du Lac, and one of the companies was from Fond du Lac, but it was organized in Oshkosh in the summer of '62, so that was manufactured. And of course, the 6th Wisconsin needs no introduction, one of the Iron Brigade regiments. So both my character and the deceased Sergeant Torber were in different theaters of war, one in the Eastern Potomac and the other in the Western theater. Yes, sir.
How many times have you been to Andersonville?
3 times. 3 times. It's very, very moving, touching place to be. They have included it as a memorial to all prisoners of war from American soldiers from all the different wars. So they have a museum there that highlights Vietnam prisoners as well as World War II. But yeah, it's very. They have reproduction walls, and but many of the tunnel holes are there. They're kind of partitioned off so you don't fall into them. The creek still runs through there. You're advised to stay away from it because it's water moccasins or something. But as an aside, and I do have another play I'm going to be putting on in the fall. It's going to be a more of a true story. Father Peter Whelan was a Roman Catholic priest out of the Savannah Diocese. He administered to the Union prisoners for 3 months during the worst of the time I was there. So he's going to give maybe a little bit more of a, I wouldn't say a southern bias, but a little bit more of the story from the southern aspect as far as the prison went, because Andersonville was just one prison of many, many others, both north and south. 13,000 plus died here, but there were, 50,000 probably all over throughout the war that died as prisoners. Yeah.
What made them start moving people around towards the end? You were talking about.
Because because of the Sherman, the Union Army was getting closer and closer, and they were fearing that there would be a push on the stockades, so they would move in safer prisons that were farther away. Plus the lines, the supply lines Sherman was tearing up. Well, it was good for the Union Army and their efforts, but on the same hand, it was cutting off all the supplies, the few supplies, food and whatnot that prisoners were getting, also paid the price for Sherman's neckties and things that he was doing. Yeah.
It has a reputation of being just hellhole. What was it unique among southern prisons or?
Well, it was unique probably because it was late in the war. The exchange program had broken down. There was no more paroling, exchanging of prisoners, so the numbers just kept getting bigger and bigger. It was notorious because they got no assistance from Richmond as far as supplies. They were paying local vendors in Confederate money, which local vendors didn't want anymore. So they had a very difficult time of obtaining any kind of supplies to make things better for the prisoners. And the management was poor, but they got very little help from the Richmond quartermaster department. Yeah.
If Sherman's cavalry would have been within a couple of days' ride, does anybody ever wonder why they didn't go and bust open this camp?
Yeah, they never got close enough that it was ever a threat. Why? Yeah, a lot of people wondered since then. I'm sure the survivors of the camp probably are wondering why. There was never any. The camp was not liberated until May, after the war was over. By Union cavalry came, and the commandant of the prison was still there. There was just a few prisoners left at that time, and of course the colonel, the captain, was the only officer. I think there was maybe one other one that was executed for war crimes. It's another story. Yeah.
Hi, I have a statement that was extraordinary that you can remember all of that. I have trouble remembering phone numbers. And second off, what compelled you to write this particular story about Andersonville? Was it just something you've always been interested in? Do you feel like it's a story that's never really been told in the way it should be?
Well, I've always been interested in Andersonville. Of course, I've been reading Civil War books for my entire life, and I think some of the first books I read were Prisoner of War accounts from Andersonville. So I've always been kind of intrigued by that. Yeah, visiting there is kind of a haunting experience, and I have written other plays that are not just Andersonville, but on other topics. But I think it's an interesting thing when you read all the different diaries and the different relationships and just how things were inside that 26 acres of land. It's just very, I don't know, it's just interesting. So we're become the victims of it. Yeah.
Just wondering, when you said this is one of hundreds and that you've got another play coming from a little bit more of the southern standpoint, what, from your standpoint, was the treatment of the prisoners in the Confederacy demonstrably different than the treatment of the prisoners from the north?
From the north, actually, probably not that much. I mean, there were probably fewer Confederates that died in the northern prison camps, but no, they were very revengeful, because reports of what was happening in Andersonville did reach the north, and they took revenge by cutting back on rations to the Confederate soldiers in the north, even though they had ample supplies to feed the prisoners. And kind of a telling thing is the quartermaster budget at the end of the war actually had a quite sizable surplus at the end of the war. And the conditions of some of the northern prisons in Lake Erie, Elmira, New York, Camp Douglas in Illinois, and there were some prisoners held here at Camp Randall in Madison as well. But I know actually that the prisoners here in the north were not done nearly as well as they should have been. The Confederates might have done better had they had access to the commissary that they never did have access to. So it's, but yeah, the north is a stain, I think, on the prisoners that were treated in the north so shabbily.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.